There's a tiny country on the edge of Africa that everyone wants a piece of. They don't have oil, no gold, and they ain't got money, but it's got prime location. I'm talking about none other than Djibouti. You probably haven't heard of it, so I'm gonna give you a brief look into why it's so important. Djibouti is the third smallest country in Africa. All in all, 23,200 square kilometers with fewer than 1 million citizens. Djibouti has a unique geostrategic location. Bordered by Eritrea to the north, Ethiopia in the west, Somalia in the southeast, Djibouti's eastern maritime borders look towards the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. More importantly, between Djibouti and Yemen lies the Bab el Mandeb Strait, a 19-kilometer wide passage through which more than 4.8 million barrels per day of crude oil and refined petroleum products flow. The US, France, Italy, Japan, China, and Spain all have bases in Djibouti. France carved this country out of historic Somalia, but what used to be an amalgamation of French legionnaires, desert, and a small ramshackle port has become the key to the scramble for Africa. After the country gained independence in 1977, the French stayed there and currently have 1,500 French personnel stationed in Djibouti, making it one of the largest contingents of the French army outside its borders. But France isn't alone. A year after the 9/11 attacks, the US deployed a permanent contingent there as part of AFRICOM. Known as Camp Lemonnier, the base is crucial for the US's operations in the wider region, whether it be operations in Somalia, Iraq, Syria, or Yemen. In 2013, it was estimated that 16 drones a day were deployed from the camp. Since October 2013, Italy has maintained a base in Djibouti with 300 personnel. Asian superpowers have also secured a piece of the pie. In July 2011, the Japan Self-Defense Forces, or SDF, opened a base in Djibouti. This was Japan's first full-scale, long-term overseas base, home to 600 members of Japan's maritime SDF. And finally, Africa's biggest investor, China, opened its People's Liberation Army, or PLA, support base in Djibouti at a cost of $590 million in 2017. So first off, the question is, how can all these countries have a base there? Well, the answer is simple. Djibouti has a GDP of less than $1 billion. So most of these bases are built at the invitation of the government of Djibouti, because the rent paid for these bases is a vital lifeline for the country's economy. It is estimated that the country makes more than $300 million a year from the rent. This strategy has also made the country immune from criticism. The current president, Omar Gule, has amended the country's constitution to extend his reign and has been characterized as a dictator by the international community. But his hospitality and extended leases to superpowers has meant that Djibouti is not subject to the same scrutiny as its neighbors. And it doesn't end here, because Djibouti plans to turn its capital into the Horn of Africa's Dubai. The country is building a $3.5 billion free trade zone, which China has a big stake in. Djibouti has borrowed nearly $957 million from the Export-Import Bank of China to finance several of these projects. And so while other powers use Djibouti as a military hotel, China seems to have taken it a step further, securing both strategic and economic interests in the country. Similarly to other developing African nations, Beijing may very well have a stronger say in the country's future than its rivals France and the US, and thus gaining significant ground in the scramble for Africa.